Frankie, how is oneself?
Oh, tough question, that one, Geo. It's
Yeah,
getting a
well,
bit tough, isn't it?
yeah, let's. Do you want to talk about the Forest game? Do you want to give your opinion on the Forest game, or do you just want to skip that and we'll get into the Lopetegui discussion? Which would you prefer? I'm happy with either.
It's all been said, isn't it? There's not much we can really talk about with regards to what went on in that game. What can you say about it? It's just, it is all down to one man at the moment. So I think we get straight into the crux of it.
Yeah, I ignored sort of giving my thoughts on Lopetegui over the last couple of days. I've spoke about like the boards side of it yesterday because I was looking forward to having this conversation with you and having a chat about Lopetegui and what we think about Lopetegui and I guess where we go from here to some extent. Um, where do you want to start? Do you have a place that you want to kick off with?
I guess we start with the big question at the moment, which is whether we can see a future with him or whether we need to make a tough decision. We've heard the video that you put out on X and his update as regards to that it seems like he's still got a bit of a backing at the moment, but he doesn't have that long left and things really need to turn around. But I think my biggest problem, and I've watched all the West Ham content since the match and I've listened to basically every single West Ham video, whether it be E20 TV or whether it be West Ham fan TV or, all the channels. I've watched all the content there is to watch, all the fan cams, and tried to get Analytics United. I've watched it all, and I just can't see anyone who has any sort of idea how this thing improves.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest worry. We're normally all sitting here. We love talking. That's why we're doing this. That's why we come on YouTube to make videos. And we all normally have our opinion.
Yeah.
There ain't even many opinions. Everyone's just, I ain't got a
Yeah,
clue what we do.
I completely agree with you. I think last season there was an obvious split. But I don't want to get into that, but I'm just for context, there was a split. This season, I don't even feel like there is one. I don't even feel like there's much. I think I've tried to I just give my opinion all the time. Sometimes it's negative, sometimes it's just my honest opinion. But with this conversation we're having today with Lopetegui, I was almost like trying to be positive on purpose. I thought, right, come on, step away, because you had an opinion of him pre-West Ham, which was not a good one. So maybe you're a bit biased. So try and step back and look at it from a positive angle. What can you bring in that's going to say that he can turn this around? I'm genuinely really struggling, Frankie. The only thing I've got is time, and that's not a reason that he's going to turn around. That's just a reason that you should maybe give him another game or two. But there's no, I've just got nothing. I've got nothing, Frankie. I'm looking at it, and I do have an opinion of him pre-West Ham because I'm at Wolves, and I just don't. There's nothing to say this guy can turn it round. I have zero evidence whatsoever, none, and that's with me trying to find something which says, well, here, let's sit down, listen. I've got some reasons. Now I've seen one or two. I've seen a little thing. There's a Twitter account called the Other 14, and they're really good. So they focus on the 14 in the league. It's not the big six. And they've got a thing called a baseline tracker. So what that is your home games against the other 13 of the other 14, if that makes sense. And we're actually plus 5 points, and we're quite high up in that little table. We're actually above Nottingham Forest in that league, despite the fact that Nottingham Forest are sitting in the top 4 of the Premier League and we're in the bottom half because we've not played any games yet at home against those types of teams. But just that's like, I don't count that as evidence as Lopetegui can turn it around. It's just performances so far. I've got nothing, Frankie. I've got literally nothing.
No, and my biggest issue that I have at the moment is everything is like almost revolutionary that he has to do. There's nothing. So in my day job, if I'm working with a client, they expect me to do 80% of what we know works and 20% of experimental stuff. And sometimes that's even less. Sometimes it's 90% because we know we get a good result from that. And then we experiment with 10%, depending on timing of year. You always have to do a bit of experimenting. It's really important because that's how you develop, that's how you evolve, that's how you go forward. With Lopetegui, I don't see any positive that we come across that he then sticks to that and says, we're just going to, just continue with that piece of the puzzle. It's always so we come away from Manchester United and we go, right, Somerville comes on, looks great, but then he doesn't start in that way and in that position for the next game. Well, why not? Every time we see a little glimmer of actually that looks like that could work, he just seems to abandon everything, tear it all up and go again. A completely overhaul to the system and the formation this weekend. And I sort of saw it before, and it was one of them ones where you think, it's better work, because if it doesn't, you're not going to look very good here. And it does every time he does it. The only time, and every single game, we're writing off the first half, we're writing off 45 minutes of football in each match, and then he tries to overhaul it for the next 45 minutes. I just want to see a bit of consistency. I want to see the man go, this is what I think is going to work for us, and we're going to stick with it and we're going to work on it. But it seems like he is completely lost, and that's my biggest worry. I don't see him having any answers. I don't see him having any confidence in what he's doing and saying, right, I've got that bit right, we're going to build on that. And while we might need some tweaks and changes around it, fundamentally that's what we need to be doing. That then instills confidence in the team. The team can't have confidence at the moment, because every time your manager puts a side out and it's completely different to what it was the previous week, it just doesn't instill confidence in anyone. So
and when he's doing 3 subs at half time, almost every week 3 players are getting hauled off to say you're not good enough off the pitch. Like every week players are getting told get off the pitch. Rodriguez was subbed after half an hour against Chelsea. That's how are you possibly meant to feel good when that's happening pretty much every single week? The manager's having to make wholesale changes at half time, and at least 3 of the players are getting shipped off. I think the thing that really bugged me on Saturday when the team come out was the 2 things. Was first of all, you're playing wing backs, but with players who are just not good at wing back. Wan-Bissaka is not a good crosser of the ball. He's not a good player he's good at dribbling. He's good at one-on-one defending. Not good positionally. Not good at crossing. Then you got Emerson, who he doesn't get assists. He's also good at dribbling. He's quite good at his quick 1-2 passing or whatever. But he's not. Honestly, our 2 best crossers were sat on the bench in Craswell and Soufal. Now, I don't want them to play as wing backs. I just don't want to play with wing backs. But so that frustrated me. Then further up the pitch was Paqueta playing on the right, Bowen through the middle, and then Somerville, like you said, on the left, but not as a winger, as like I guess you could call it an inside forward. So all 3 players were out of position, and we were quite keen to go long ball at times as well. And saying, what on earth are we? It was just an absolute shambles from start to finish, and I just don't see how it was ever going to work. Even if every player did what they were supposed to do, I still think we lose that game. Even if Bowen was somehow able to hold off 6'6" Milenkovic and start laying the ball back off to Somerville, we were still be getting the ball out wide and crossing it with players who are not very good at crossing it into Bowen and Somerville up against Milenkovic and Murillo. What's that about? Like his tactics, even if they were carried out correctly by the players, I think we would have still lost that game. And it's gone beyond concerning for me. I was concerned after the first few games. It's now I'm just incredibly frustrated, and I'm more angry about this summer than I am this season so far. Does that make sense?
It makes
Because
perfect sense.
like the appointment was wrong. The summer transfer window, I think everybody was suspicious of it a little bit. And I know this whole West Ham won the window. I think neutrals were saying that more than West Ham fans from what I've seen personally. I didn't really see too many West. I felt there was more frustrations with not getting John Duran, for example, than West Ham fans go, oh yeah, but this is an amazing window. I felt like there was more disappointment than happiness. And I think it's like almost a bit unfair, actually. And I just look back to the summer and there were suspicions, and it wasn't just me. There was loads of people had suspicions about Lopetegui. And I just thought, I really wanted to be proven wrong. As soon as it was appointed, I just shut my mouth because I thought, I'm not going to piss on anyone's fireworks. Hopefully he goes on to do well. Moyes proved me wrong. I hope Lopetegui does. I just don't see it. I just think, there's all this talk that he's going to get the Everton game and he has to win. There's some talk that even if we win but we don't play well, that still might not be enough. And I think we're already at this point. Like I always say, if you've decided you've got to win the next game, you've already decided it's not good enough. You've already accepted it's not worked. I've never seen a manager get a 1-game ultimatum and go on to be successful at that club. It doesn't happen. It's just delaying the inevitable from this point on if we're already at that point. And I don't know if we'll lose to Everton. I haven't really decided. I haven't really got a bit of a vibe if I think we'll win, draw, or lose yet, because my attention's still on all this rather than looking forward to the next game. But it's a good fixture to play. If you need a win, Everton at home, you're not going to get too many easier ones than that in the Premier League. But even if we did win, it's not going to make me think, oh yeah, this is now the guy for the long term. He's only got a 2-year contract. We're a few months in already, and it's like there's nothing, Frankie, nothing.
No, it's gutting. It's absolutely gutting. And we all felt like this was a little bit of a fresh start. One thing that it has done, like you said, we needed to become united in our fan base. Well, I think we are all united. I think we're all united that he isn't the man for the job. And actually, I think we all, quite a big majority, expected that. I always had a problem when you speak to any of the fans from his previous clubs. Not any of them have got a good word to say about him.
Not many, no.
That's a problem. And that was always alarm bells. It was all my biggest issue with him at the moment is we've got one of those managers who has his way of playing, and regardless of the personnel that he's got available to him, he wants to stick with that. I've never liked managers that like that. Sometimes, especially when you first come into a club and you've got the players that you've got, sometimes you've got to play how it suits those personnel, how it suits those players. And you have to adapt a little bit. And once he's built his team and he's had a few transfer windows of being able to get the right players to play the system that he wants to play, then go all out and do what you got to do. But at the moment, like you said, it's clear we don't have wing backs. So why are we persisting with trying to play with wing backs in the formation? It is so frustrating. It screams of a manager who is very kind of just have one way of playing, and that's all he's got. And he tries to do a small change of it. It's not, he isn't really changing the system when he goes to the 3 at the back. He's just chucking another man in there in the hope that it makes it more difficult for us to, at the back, and more difficult for teams to score. But it isn't a total overhaul, because even when we play with the 2 at the back, we tend to want one of our midfielders to drop into that centre back role, and we end up with that same sort of shape anyway. So he isn't really changing much. It's a very small tweak that's never ever going to be enough to improve on the way that we're playing and the results. And it just doesn't suit us. It really doesn't suit us with the players that we've got, the way this man wants to play football. It just isn't right. And you can argue whether that's an issue with the signings that were brought in, and to be honest, more and more pressure now is coming onto Tim Steidten as well. I hear a lot more comments on him. We always had that believe in Steidten kind of approach, and we said let him do his job because he's very good at what he does. Well, more and more people are starting to question whether or not he actually brought in the right players. One, for the Premier League, because I think a lot of the players he brought in don't suit Premier League football. And 2, whether he brought in the right players for Lopetegui's way of playing. And me and you sat here and had conversations on that. We said Lopetegui plays with really high fullbacks or wingbacks, whatever you want to call them. So those positions are going to be critical. And then when we was thinking with Wan-Bissaka, the biggest problem that we was all saying is that man isn't that type of fullback or wingback. It just isn't. It ain't going to work. So you could all see it. We could all see that actually the players that we were signing wouldn't typically suit how Lopetegui plays. Yet those were the players that we went out and got. So look, a lot of mistakes here. When we should be trying to push on, and we had a little bit of a reset and a managerial change, and we go and spend that amount of money, you've got to see something. And at the moment, I'm seeing nothing. I don't see anybody that can give you an answer on, if you asked anybody across the West Ham fan base, what can Lopetegui do against Everton that would make you absolutely confident of getting a result? I don't think many of us have got the answer.
No, I think a half decent opponent on Saturday, I think, would beat us. I think how I said Everton are the team one of the teams you'd want to play. I think West Ham are the team you want to play at the minute. Confidence is low. The tactics are crap. We've got a lot of weaknesses in the team. It's not difficult to exploit us defensively. We don't create much offensively. It's a very easy team to play against. For the Everton game, we're missing Kudus and Alvarez as well. It's, a difficult job just got even more difficult. It might work in his favour in the sense that it's his hands forced and he's going to have to play Souček in there if he's recovered from his virus, and that might help us a little bit. But I just don't see anything. I'm not avoiding the Tim Steidten thing. I want to do a separate video about him because I've got accused of giving him a lot of stick since he joined, but it wasn't a criticism of him. It's just I don't credit him for what happened at Leverkusen. I've always said it was Simon Rolfes, not Tim Steidten. And I think what we're seeing this summer is a man with his first ever summer as I know he's a technical director, as a job title, but just work with me. As a director of football, it was his first ever summer, because I know he was here last summer, but you won't convince me in a month of Sundays he was in charge 2023, because Moyes had the final say. I think a lot of the plans were already put in place before he arrived at the club, like Mohamed Kudus and Edson Alvarez, and then James Ward-Prowse. So we signed 4 players, and I think 3 of them were already identified before he arrived. He did the negotiating for 2 of those, and he brought in Mavropanos, yes, but I don't think that was his window. I think it was the club's window. But this summer, I think it's fair to say that it was his window to some extent. Yes, there was influences from David Sullivan with Somerville and Lopetegui wanted Kilman. However, I think that's a good thing, that your director of football is going to say to his head coach, is there anyone you really want? Yeah, that guy. Okay, I'll go get him for you. That's, in my opinion, that's good management as a director of football, to go get someone your head coach feels is vital to how he wants to play. There's a balance here. And I think what we're seeing this summer is just a guy with his first ever rodeo. And there's going to be mistakes. But the problem is, I think if we had hired the right head coach, the summer transfer window would look better than it has done, because I think we'd be playing a little bit better. And you go, okay, right, it's not perfect. Guilherme's not got loads of minutes. That player's not quite worked out so far. However, it's okay. We're enjoying what we're seeing. We're doing okay. There's a few teething problems, not much of an issue. But I think because the recruitment of Lopetegui was so poor, I think it's really exposed. I'm not going to say an amateur window. That's harsh. I don't think it is, because we've signed good players. A mismatched window, I think, is what I would describe it as. Wan-Bissaka, good player, but the right player, not sure. Füllkrug, good player, right player, not sure. We don't know yet. We haven't seen him. But my point is, we've brought in some good players, but they're not necessarily the right ones for Lopetegui. And I think this is where I get a bit confused. Just, well, it feels like Tim Steidten's building a squad for a head coach we don't have. And I don't get it. I don't get it. So is he building it, going, I'm doing my job regardless of who's here? Or is he saying that you must use these players? What's good? Because, like you said, the Wan-Bissaka Walker-Peters thing is the prime example to that. So we went and got the more defensive of the two for the head coach that wants to use an offensive right back. It doesn't make sense. But I think my anger stems from the appointment of Lopetegui, because I feel, and I know not everyone agrees, it's my opinion, I feel the club was in a decent place post David Moyes. We just finished 9th. The club's pretty rich. We just went and spent over 100 million in the summer transfer. Going into that summer transfer window, we were going to hire a new head coach. I feel like the foundation of the squad was pretty good. We had some good players with a lot of money. We wanted to bring in extra revenue. We had a lot of money to spend. I think we were in a good position. And I think we've absolutely messed it up.
No, we have 100%. And actually, playing Nottingham Forest was the worst team that we could have played last week. Not because of their team, how they're playing, the form that they're in, but because they're very active on social media. You see a real togetherness of the videos that are coming out. You're seeing them players celebrating in the changing rooms. You're seeing them all with smiles on their faces. What you see is the polar opposite to West Ham. You see a football team all pull in the same direction, with a manager that they all believe in, with a confidence that is radiating out of that football club at the moment, which is turning into this really positive results that they're generating. And actually, when you then see what we've got, and we've got Paqueta when Todibo done his thing, rather than trying to get back, throwing his arms up in the air, we've got people whinging, we've got people, you know, just body language.
Well,
Just
it's even
awful.
Edson Alvarez put up a social media post apologising to the fans and his teammates for the red card. Didn't mention anyone else.
No.
And people are now going, is this a dig? Is this a dig? But that's what you do naturally. You're like, I noticed you didn't mention that you didn't apologise to Lopetegui though. So did you mean to do that, or is it just a bit of a mistake, or what? But he just said like a sorry to the fans and my teammates. It was like, somebody's missing from that apology there.
Yeah, and that's, you start putting 2 and 2 together, and sometimes you come up with 5, and sometimes you come up with 10, and it isn't the best way to go about things.
Sometimes it's 4.
And you know, we can go with as many saying as you want. There's no smoke without fire, blah blah blah. However you want to call it, or however you want to word it, or however you want to phrase it. The point is, there's something wrong at West Ham at the moment, and it ain't right. And that's what we've got to address. And this was my question to you, Geo. I said I had a question before, and this is a perfect moment to bring it up.
Come on then.
Why do West Ham? And I'm not saying that this is a thing, and you might tell me that this is completely normal, but why do we have players who come to West Ham who pick up injuries, go home, and never seem to want to come back to West Ham ever again? Like, we've had that multiple times now. We're having it with Fulkrug, wants to go back to Germany. We're having it with Cornet, he went missing. We had it with Scamacca, he went back to Italy. Why do we keep having these players who come to West Ham, pick up an injury, and then we never see them ever again? To me, it's weird. I don't see it anywhere else, but maybe that's just because I'm not a fan of their football clubs, and maybe this is common practice in the modern game. I don't know, but it don't seem right to me.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of another example. For some reason, I feel like there was one last season at another club. It's not coming to me, but I don't keep up to date in that aspect of what's going on at other clubs and stuff like that. I think a lot of it will be, obviously Cornet was a bit different, but I think with Scamacca and Fulkrug, but saying that the club are putting out very mixed messages regarding Fulkrug's whereabouts, almost as if say we don't know where he is to some extent. I think a lot of it's down to morale. When a player's injured, you know, we've had the privilege of speaking to a few former players now, and there's some extreme situations like Dean Ashton. And he spoke about how when you're injured, when you go into the training ground, you go in at a different time to your teammates. So you're obviously the physios are with the players on the training pitch in case someone picks up a knock. So they go in and do their training and go home. And then the injured players go in for treatment. He said, but you're just on your own. You're just sat there on your own, get treatment, and then you go home. So you miss out on that changing room banter, which is quite crucial to football. You rely on it, don't you? That's your thing. That camaraderie in the changing room, so you miss out on that. And a lot of players, I don't know what Fulkrug's situation is, I don't know what Scamacca's is, but a lot of players don't have family over here. So when they're injured, I'd imagine it's a really lonely thing when you're a footballer. And I think it's maybe a bit different if your wife and kids are at home and you're going home to them after your treatment and stuff. But there are certainly a lot of players that possibly come over here by themselves, and they're social interaction is purely their teammates. You see it quite often with, you know, Mohamed Kudus came over by himself and he relied on Joe Nang. And he spoke about how important Anang was to him settling in at West Ham. Now, this is our third choice keeper who we never ever seen, and he's no longer with us. But I don't think you can underestimate Anang's role in Mohamed Kudus at West Ham United. Just because we don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And you see it with Paqueta, Emerson, and now Guilherme. Guilherme has spoken about how Emerson and Paqueta has been crucial to him settling. A young lad, 18 years old, coming over from Brazil. That must be incredibly daunting. I assume he's got no wife. So actually, those two are his safety blanket. And if he was injured and isolated from those two, I'd imagine, I don't know. I think maybe sometimes it's just to go back to their family home and receive treatment back there. It might be trusted doctors. It might be that German international team have got a really top doctor in place and said, no, come use our guy. Don't use West Ham's one. I mean, look at, I know we buy injury prone players, Frankie, and we all laugh at the state of some of the things we've had. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised if clubs look at us and go, look at them. Players get injured and they're out forever. You know, not always the case. You know, Souček hardly ever misses a game, for example. Noble hardly ever missed a game. but there are some disasters when it comes to West Ham and our inability to almost fix them a little bit. So, truth be told, Frankie, I don't know what your answer is. I think as long as the club are okay with it, I'm okay with it. My concern is when you have scenarios like Maxwell Cornet, who, by the sounds of it, went over to France without permission and got his own treatment.
The problem is, though, Gio, none of the examples have ever come back and got back involved with West Ham again. And I know this is a very different type of scenario because this player in particular has always been involved in this football club. But I've been on the training ground
I've got one.
at Sparrow.
I've got one example.
Go on.
But you tell your story first. And
So mine would Sparrows Lane, Cholton, their training ground. I've been down there when Miles Leeburn had a really bad injury. Young kid out for a long time. Obviously, his dad played for the club and his mum works for the club. So it's a little bit different because he is involved in that club so deeply and so ingrained in that football club. But you saw him, that training ground, you've got the gym next to the therapy room. He's in the therapy room, but all of the other players are mingling. They're all still together. He has lunch with the rest of the squad. He is involved with the squad even throughout his rehabilitation. The team spirit is still there. He's still very ingrained. He comes back from injury. I don't know how many goals he scored, but he scored 2 again the other night. He's literally hit the ground running. The second he's back from injury, he's back. He's in it. If you just distance yourself and you go off to another country, coming back then and getting back involved, it just doesn't seem right to me.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, to be fair, when Jack Wilshere was injured, he went into the tumble dryer.
He did. That's how probably we are all picking up injuries, stupid stuff like that. But you know, it's just this. I just don't see, and this I'm going to. While I had a lot of problems with David Moyes, as everybody will know, for whatever reason, even though he was the most miserable, ignorant man that I've ever come across personally, not from a distance. I mean, every time I've ever met him or been in his space, I really struggled with him. He was totally not interested in the fan base or anyone else that was going on around him. For whatever reason, the team seemed to all be together. And that was one of the biggest positives that we used to say, that how we looked like everyone enjoyed their football and pulled together for each other. And even when the going got tough, we sort of all stuck with each other. That seems to have totally gone right now. And one thing I'm going to give Lopetegui is that Paqueta was quite, I think, pivotal to the success that Moyes had at the end there. I mean, we know that he played the pass, and if he doesn't play that pass in the final, we may not win that trophy. So regardless, Moyes would have had the issue with Paqueta right now with the gambling scenario and everything else that's going on. So, you know, Moyes would have still had that problem, is what I'm trying to say. And Moyes would have had, and maybe it would be falling apart around him as well in terms of the morale and how everybody is and everything else. Who knows? But I would definitely say that when you look at a team that's full of spirit, who are all together, who all seem to want to be fighting for the cause, that I think is not there at the moment with West Ham. I think that's massively missing.
My example, by the way, I'm not going to. It was Paqueta. He went to Vinicius Junior's gaffing and did his rehabilitation over in Spain. Remember, but in regards to what you were speaking about, I think this is the captaincy thing as well. I think obviously the good team spirit of Moyes coincided with Noble as captain.
Yeah,
and then the baton got passed to Declan Rice, who was almost like a mini Mark Noble, I guess, when it came to the captaincy. And then it went to Zuma, and I feel like maybe that is the reason. Is it the manager? Is it the captaincy? Maybe it's both. Maybe there's an element of the two things going on there as well. But I do wonder if maybe Bowen would have been a better captain under David Moyes. I think I'm not sure. Just my thing. I don't know.
I mean, I agree with that. And we've got a big problem with discipline at the moment. The sending offs are a problem. The attitude is a problem. I don't see Bowen active enough playing that role as part of what a captaincy is. Yeah. Like when Kudus was kicking off, I expect like Noble would have been in between them at that point.
Bowen was in between. He was, yeah. Bowen got involved in that. He was trying to be fair, I think he was trying to push Spurs players, but what he didn't realise, Kudus was slapping players behind his back. So I think Bowen does.
But it's
I
a
think Bowen's got.
presence, isn't it? We know Bowen is quite timid. He's quite a shy person.
Yeah,
He isn't a vocal person. And that's not saying that you can't have a different style of captaincy. I'm all for the fact that, and there's no question that the loyalty that Bowen has shown to the football club,
yeah,
signing the contract he did, they're all good things. He's kind of a lead by example
yeah.
type of captain rather than, you know, a vocal captain and somebody who's going to point and shout. But I definitely feel that there are elements that we need from a captain right now that might be missing. And actually, for all Tim Steidten wandering around on the football pitch and showing his face, maybe Noble needs to become a little bit more visible, is what I would say. And maybe we need to lean on him a little bit at the moment and try and reinstall some of that togetherness and, you know, West Ham spirit that we seem to be missing right now.
Well, to summarise then, in terms of Lopetegui, where are you sitting?
I just don't see it improving yet. I would love to see us make a ruthless decision. I said to you, I don't want to be in Arsenal. I don't want to be the man who starts screaming for their manager out. I can't believe we're back to this point already. Just typical West Ham to get this wrong and end up in this position. However, I did say that whatever happened with whatever appointment we made, at some point, those who had that opinion of be careful what you wish for will be made right before it gets better. Well, that bit's there now. They're all sitting there thinking, right, well, we told you so. But I always felt that would happen. I always felt that would come before the better times, you know, came along. So now I'm just hopeful that either, for whatever reason, Lopetegui seems to stumble across something. And let's be fair, Joe. You said earlier on about, you know, a manager not succeeding after being given that sort of ultimatum of one more game. David Moyes was one loss away from having the worst percentage win ratio in West Ham's history.
Yeah, that's true.
And he then went on and did what he did. So
Yeah.
not all is lost. However, I would say if we want to quickly get back to where we all believe that we need to be and not do too much damage, I would say that we need to make a very quick decision. And I'd love to see West Ham do it rather than get to the end of the season and just write a season off.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that team, but I think it's not like we've gone and got Amorim and we're not giving him time. I think if we'd have done that, different scenario.
That's exactly it for me, Frankie. I think when I looked at Ariola when he came into Bournemouth, I didn't know him pre-Bournemouth. I don't watch Spanish football, but you could. They were getting beat quite regularly under him. And it was like, whoa, especially after like a bit of a controversial sacking of Gary O'Neill, who'd done a steady job at Bournemouth, and they dismissed him. And really, you think you're better than that, do you? And they got, you know, get the Spanish guy in, and he's not really working. They're getting beat. Like, oh, look what's happened to you. It was almost like the "be careful what you wish for" line was coming out. But you could see what they were doing. As a neutral, I could watch them and I could see what he was trying to do. It just wasn't quite working yet. And it started working, and it's now working, and they were enjoying the fruits of that labor. But now I'm watching West Ham, I just don't see anything. I think I'm probably like 80% sack Lopetegui, and the only thing that's stopping me going 100% is purely just because it feels early. It's nothing Lopetegui's done. It's just because 10 Premier League games feels 12 games feels early. But like a subscriber said to me last month, he said 5 months ago, well, it's now 6 months he's been here. That's a long time. 6 months is ages. And there's just nothing. The guy, it's not like you said, it's not like we've gone over to the Bundesliga, picked up a manager, and he's gone, I don't really know West Ham, but like, trust us coming over. He comes over and he's learning on the job. This guy claimed he'd been watching us all last season. There's almost no reason for him to be struggling.
Do you think that's ball talk?
I think it's
that I'm not sure about. I think that was all engineered.
I half believe it, Frankie. I think he was keeping an eye on us last season, but I think he was keeping an eye on half the Premier League. He wasn't watching West Ham only thinking, I want that job. I reckon he was watching half the Premier League thinking, I'll have that job, or I'll have that one, or I'll have that one, or I'll have that one. I think he just wanted a Premier League club that was pretty stable. It wasn't a relegation aside, it's just been promoted or anything like that. I think he was. So when Crystal Palace come up and he was heavily linked to it, I believe that link as well, actually, that he might have been interested. They might have been interested in him. Then they obviously went and got Glasner, because I bet you he was keeping an eye on that Palace job. if he was unemployed right now, I bet he'd be keeping an eye on the Everton job, thinking, Dyche is maybe going to get this. Oh, I fancy a little bit of that. I think he would have kept an eye on West Ham, but I think he would have kept an eye on other Premier League clubs too. So when it's the whole, he watched West Ham, what they miss out is he was also watching the rest of them. So I think it's half a truth, personally. But regardless,
we're 6 months in, Geo, and we keep saying we're not sure what our best 11 is, and we're still there 6 months down the line. That's a big, big worry. We should at least now know roughly what we want to play like, and we should be trying to have a style, and we should have an identity, and we should be looking and going, I kind of get it. It ain't happening, but I get it.
Yeah,
but we're not there. We still haven't got a clue how we should be playing.
There should be working components. At the very worst case scenario, we should be sitting here going, do you know what? What he's doing in defensive midfield's working, but he's missing Fulkrug. Like, you can see we're playing for Fulkrug, but we ain't got him. That's not his fault. The striker's been injured. Not his fault. Right, okay, we'll give him a bit of leeway here. But I think Fulkrug could be 100% fit for Saturday, and I don't think anything changes. It's not like that's not... It's just nothing. The defence looks poor. The midfield looks poor. And the attack looks poor. And somehow even the goalkeeper looks poor at the minute as well. He's in Manchester. But it's just small things where, like Bowen, he took our... He's not been our best player this season, but he is our most important player, in my opinion. His best position's on the right, and he took him out of there and put him up against... to play him against Milankovic and Murillo was just unforgivable for me, because it was just never going to succeed. You needed both centre-backs to have a crap game and Bowen to have an incredible game. And this Bowen's not been informed this season. Honestly, it was like a 1 in 100 shot what he did on Saturday using Bowen as striker. I don't get it. You speak about 90%, 10% probability. His team lineup, the probability was so small. It was actually unbelievable what he done. And I made a bit of a joke with Gonzo because he said about how Lopetegui commented on Forest. I said, I don't even believe this guy's been watching him for a week. And if he has, I don't believe he's going to come up with anything to counteract what Forest do. And when I was watching it, I was like, there's no way he's watched Nottingham Forest. Or if he has, I don't know what he's watching. Because Forest played like the way they have been all season. And we were just completely unprepared for it. It's just, there is nothing to say. This is why Lopetegui's going to turn it around. Have faith. There's nothing. I hope we win on Saturday, but that's not because I want Lopetegui to keep his job. It's just because I want West Ham to win a game of football. I'll always want us to win, and I understand it's the whole, winning, he stays, lose, we go. I'm not even convinced he will go if we lose. I think we might have to get a little bit of a slap in before they consider that. I can never want West Ham to lose, regardless of the manager. I think when you start doing that, I think to some extent you're putting personal opinion before the football club, and I think that, for me, that's where the line gets a bit fuzzy. So I hope we win on Saturday. And if anything, I'm probably hoping that he walks off like he did at Wolves. I'm hoping he goes, you know what? I don't like this club. I don't like Tim. I don't like Sullivan. I don't like this fan base. I'm off. But good. Thank you very much. That saves us a decision. I've generally got to the point. I'm hoping that Lopetegui does what he did at Wolves and buggers off and saves us a few quid and saves us watching those performances anymore. So there you go. Anything you'd like to add, Frankie?
No, summed it up perfectly, mate.
Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please do drop a like on the video by clicking thumbs up. It's free, takes 2 seconds and helps us out. If you're new to the Hammer Chat YouTube channel, please do subscribe. That's also free, takes 2 seconds and helps us out. But myself and Frankie will catch up with you next week at some point after the Everton game, where we may have a Lopetegui, we may not have a Lopetegui. We'll catch you then.